From Inwood, New York City, welcome to Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where you meet the musicians, writers, theater makers, filmmakers, and artists of all stripes that make their home what we affectionately call upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we welcome local actor and filmmaker Rachel Kerry. Rachel is an award-winning filmmaker and theater director who specializes in horror, comedy, musical theater, and interactive storytelling. Her work has been hailed as unabashed extravagance by Time Out, triumphantly weird by IO9, and uncompromising parody by the Scotsman. And you have to say the Scotsman like that. She received her MFA in directing from Australia's National Theatre Institute of Dramatic Art and graduated cum laude from the University of Southern California. Her theater directing has been featured in Mythik Camps, FlameCon NYC, Perth's Fringe World, and many others. Her filmmaking has been featured in ABC's Rage, Midsummer, Scream's Screaming Room Film Festival, which was an audience winner, by the way, the Queer Fear Film Festival, and many others, including the Inwood Film Festival. In 2024, she was selected to be one of the 10 fellows as part of Film Shop's Breakthrough series. She currently teaches acting for the Atlantic Theater School as well. So, without further ado, I want to welcome Rachel Kerry. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You bet. I mean, I feel like we could just do a podcast off of your bio. So much diversity and all around Swiss Army knife of type person in the arts, which a person after my own heart. We last saw each other at not too long ago our Filmmaker's Al Fresco presentation of your film Strangers on the A Train, which of course garnered wonderful responses from the audience this past July at the and then of course the Inwood Film Festival previous to that in May. Does it surprise you how much people love that film? Or the reactions to it, at least? Feign liking it, maybe? Or no, I'm kidding. Of course, they love that film.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is yes. I am extremely surprised, like pleasantly surprised, like wonderfully surprised that, you know, this short film that I made for all of $300 that was sort of like my entry point into like indie filmmaking. And like my first, like my starter offer short film, and like this is what I'm going to use to just like learn about the filmmaking and film festival circuit process. Mm-hmm. The fact that it's connected with audiences has been like such a delight. You know, when you're making a piece of art and when you're telling a story, like you never really know how the audience is going to react, or like, you know, you shouldn't try to second guess what the audience is going to do. You just have to tell the story that you want to tell as authentically as possible. And then maybe it'll connect with the audience. I don't know. But so it's been really lovely to see people react so strongly to it.
Well, it's real fun. And the fact that it's a local rooted story, it's also really great. Shot locally on Dykeman. With or without permission, I won't ask for the platforms there at the MTA. But if you haven't seen it, folks, you should check it out at a film festival near you, or perhaps coming online in the near future on your website or whatnot. And as I stated when I read your bio too, you work in theater and film. Both have a lot in common with each other, but demand different skill sets and mindfulness. So as someone who has done what you're doing and balances film and a theater life, I'm curious, what drives you to do both? Some people say, I'm done with theater, I'm doing film, or why even touch theater? I'm only doing film, or I'm a theater person, I would never do film. Just curious, you know, what's the teeter-totter like for you, and what fills you from both of them?
Yeah, thank you. Oh gosh, how did I go from theater into film? I feel like I've certainly had a very non-linear career path, as many people in the arts tend to have, and I think a lot of it comes down to, well, so many different ways to go into this.
Take a breath. Just choose your path.
I know. I was like, do I start to
choose
talk about
adventure.
My childhood? No,
you can.
I could. Way back when. Well, one entry point was as an undergrad in college at the University of Southern California. I was studying theater, but I was very lucky to be accepted into this like multimedia literacy honors program that I kind of applied to because it looked cool, but I didn't know what it was. And through that program, I started learning about like video projection on stage. So I was really looking at filmmaking and video art for live performance. And that's how I learned Final Cut Pro software. So I was not so much interested in film, but I was interested in the way film is just how an actor on stage could interact with projection. And then, cut to many years later, I really discovered how much I love horror and horror cinema and horror comedy. And I found that I just really enjoyed the way you can tell that story in film, and I found more opportunities for horror in film than in theater. So that's the more recent reason for film.
I was going to say, it's I was going to jump ahead a little bit about talking about your work itself, but Stranger on the A Train has definitely a horror aspect to it. As a film you're working on right now, so as one might glean from your bio and from the festivals you've played at, you have an affinity for the horror thriller genre.
Yeah.
And so what attracts you to creating for that genre?
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about my childhood again. Why not? I'll go over there.
So I know what you did last summer was a documentary, and that was what you did. Okay, or Final Destination was a documentary.
Yeah, no. I don't know. I was always one of those little Tim Burton kids, I was a little kid who just loved Beetlejuice, and I loved Nightmare Before Christmas. So I always was really drawn to the sort of I was a little Halloween kid. That was my favorite holiday. I was that kid who ran around with the scary mask. So that's a baseline. But I think in terms of storytelling and the narratives I like to tell, I've always loved duality, and I've always loved getting the audience to have a visceral reaction. I love that's what I love about theater is really having a powerful reaction as a communal experience. And horror is definitely the genre where the audience will laugh and scream very loudly, or I guess scream and then laugh. But if you've ever been in a packed movie theater for a scary movie on a Friday night, that is the loudest theater in the building. And that's what I love. I just love the roller coaster of it.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. It's a lot of uncertainty in horror films too. I think that's really great too. So the duality, it plays into that.
Yeah.
The uncertainty and choices.
And you don't know where the story is going to go, and you can take these wild strings.
Yeah.
Excuse me. You can take these wild swings in different directions.
No, I couldn't agree more. How did you start out? Don't say when you were 3, but did you act first? Did you direct first, or what did you do?
I started with acting, actually. Yeah. That I think a lot of people find directing through other paths. But I started being interested in acting, and then I directed my first play because there was a story that I wrote and directed it, and there's a story I really wanted to tell. And I realized that directing had everything that I loved about acting and nothing that I hated about acting. And then I started to really lean into it, and didn't look back basically.
That's a great answer. Are you directing theater now too, or not so much?
I'm taking a little break this year. So for the last 2 summers, I was the interactive theater director for this kids interactive experience LARP camp, and I was working with a repertory of actors to tell a different story every week. That's a whole other story. That job was nuts. Super fun. But yeah, so I haven't been doing any theater since then, but the last couple months I've been kind of feeling the theater itch, where I'm just oh, I could really kind of want to get on stage again. I don't know what. I'm in that stage where I'm I want to do it again. I just don't know what the project is.
Well, that's a good feeling to have, though, and be open to receive what comes your way. We're in a very creative neighborhood, as you know.
Yeah.
And hopefully at one of our functions you can meet or have met like-minded people who might want to put you on stage or giving you a directing opportunity. You never know. Going back to the filmmaking and all that too. Where are you now in your journey as a filmmaker? You've done your first couple films here. seasoned veteran, maybe not, but where are you in your journey? I guess the easiest way to say it openly is saying theater, you're getting the itch, but there's a lot to learn as technology keeps increasing too, and empowering the DIY. Like the Final Cut Pro is a game changer, and Adobe Premiere, all that stuff, or whichever package you worship.
Oh, I'm an avid. I was going to say I'm an avid Premiere girl.
Avid,
like, avid. No, avid. No, I'm.
I started on the Avid when I was doing college radio.
Yeah. No, I am an Adobe Premiere girl. Actually, Final Cut was my entry point, and then I switched to Premiere, and another not looking back situation. I love Premiere. Anyway, sorry, I cut you off when you were asking me a different question.
No. But it's Shop Talk is great for what you're using, and people actually, I think it's very helpful. This podcast always instructs people of how to pursue what they're using, what equipment people are using. But like, where are you now in your journey as far as like, some people have done a couple shorts and they want to try a feature, or the genre specific. You've been doing so much horrors. Like, is there something related like a doc about like my wife, for instance, is all about true crime. Like she's a Dateline /2020.
So she would have enjoyed Strangers on the A Train.
Oh, she loved it. She absolutely loved it. She came to see the festival, and so I'm just curious if there's stories there, because you kind of said it earlier, which I think is really wonderful. Like, be a story-oriented person. Like, what stories do you want to tell? Like, are there stories out there that deserve to be told that are in your wheelhouse?
Yeah. To answer a few of those questions, sticking with horror, there are a few more short films that are stories I want to tell. And a lot of the short films, there's like 2 or 3 short films that I want to make because the story in that format suits, or the short film format will suit those stories the best. There we go, I got it out. But I also am thinking about, I'm getting to the point where I need to start thinking about a feature, but just like the early days of like, okay, I want to make a feature, probably in the next 5 years, maybe the next 3, I don't know. And then like, what is the right story to pursue? And all of the short films that I've actually been doing have been increasingly, like they've been harder to make and have needed more skills. So like the one that I just shot earlier this year was like the biggest one I've ever made. So then the next one will also be the biggest one I've ever made and progress. And so eventually to get to a feature. But if I want that feature to happen, I need to start planning soon.
Where did the idea for your current film, Iron Teeth, come from?
Oh, yeah. So that one came up because that was a theater company that came out of a theater project. So I was pitching ideas to an indie theater company, which unfortunately no longer exists, but the format was sort of horror theater. And I went in and I was just like, I'm just going to brainstorm like 5 different ideas, just like a title and a log line, and then we can chat about which one to like develop, right? And so the concept for With Iron Teeth was simply don't F with Baba Yaga. That was like the idea. And I was like, don't F with Baba Yaga, something involving like identity theft and like cybercrime. That's it. That's just and then I like wrote that down, and then I was like, next one, spooky nightmare, like physical theater piece. Next one, something else. What was the other? Other one was like creepy summer camp story. So it was just one of 5 bullet pointed ideas. And then like a couple years later, when I was like wanting to like, I need to work on a new short film, I was kind of looking back at old ideas, and I was like, oh, that one could be like a cool short. I wonder what would that be as a 4-page script? And then the 4-page script became like a 10-page script. So yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry, that's the trajectory.
But I was great is that you kind of give us a little hint of your process too, like developing ideas.
Yeah.
You may be a good showrunner somewhere, like picking things out, going, oh, there's that, but then. It's not a 4-page; it's a 10-page, and I think it's great.
I'd take that job.
yeah. So why did you have to make this film? Though, once you decided to go with Baba Yaga, like why did you say, okay, I need to commit to this?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I look back on some projects I've done in the past, and I can like see the trajectory really clearly, where it was like I knew at this moment I was going to do this, and then other projects, it's like I don't remember when I wanted to do that. when did I write that draft? But it was just like, oh yeah, I just had it at some point. I think with Iron Teeth, it was just like, I don't even remember why I started writing. I mean, like, I feel like there's just days where you're like, I'm tired of binge watching stuff on Netflix. I should be productive. Maybe I'll just like write. Yeah.
Does writing come easy to you?
It's like cyclical. It's kind of like the way I treat reading, where it's like there's just like times where I just feel like reading a lot and I just like dive into a bunch of books, and then like a few months will go by where I'm like, I can't touch a book. Nothing. So it comes and goes with writing. But sometimes when an idea is like even now, it's like the changing of the seasons, you know, where you're like fall's in the air. I feel like I have an idea for a script.
So you have that's almost done in production right now with Iron Teeth?
We're in post-production right now. Yeah. We almost have a working rough cut.
Okay.
And then, but like, you know how that process is, where it's like, it's coming along, but it's also post is such a time-consuming process.
They call it post for a reason. It can happen eternally.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever happened afterwards.
Actually so great that there's like a hard deadline as a requirement of the grant, because not only is it something for me to know, but it's something I can say to my editor, where I can be like, look, we know we need it done by this date, and we need to have time for like sound and color correction. So my editor can be like, okay, great, I can't slack off on this. I mean, not that he would. He's like a really, really awesome editor, but it's just nice to have that in the back of your head, you know? Yeah.
No, it's great. Well, as she alluded to, she's also a Filmmaker Fund grantee for Inwood Art Works. How just curious, was the grant, I mean, obviously it's great to get a grant, of course, from anywhere, but how was this grant particularly helpful in the guise of someone who produces short films? Like, how did it factor in? Like, was it meaningful, not meaningful? Was it too little, too not, whatever? I mean, I'm always curious hearing people's feedback.
Yeah, so it was the reason we made it.
Okay, there's that. Okay,
we would not have made this short film without that grant money.
Oh wow, great.
I mean, it just like lit fire underneath my butt to like go and make it and feel like, okay, well, and I was like, well, if this is I have this money and I have a deadline, so I knew post was probably going to be long because of just like stuff I wanted to do. And I was like, all right, then we have to film it. Also your grant application requirement had a timeline.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I guess the timeline I made up for the grant application, I have to follow it now. So here we go.
Well, that's the thing, is like when you can make the rules when you're handing the money out. But it's funny. People come back to me going, I don't think I can. Well, great. If you can get back the money, it's fine. No, we'll be done. We'll be done. But I'm pretty good about working with people though. But things come out like pandemics, but still, I'm glad to hear that. And I will say, I wish we had more to give to more. It's very, people always like, oh, you didn't choose mine or whatever. Like, well, first off, I didn't personally choose. It's like we have a committee and blah blah blah. It's very democratic. But the thing is, there's only so much money to go around either, and the pool to divide up to projects. So consider yourself pat in the back for getting it, but two is that if we have more people giving, we could fund more projects. So if you want to fund, you just heard the fund actually created work for her and her team to make something. Please consider giving a gift to Inwood Art Works. It's tax-free, by the way, tax deductible, and you may just actually greenlight someone's short film. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And
I will say, I worked as hard as possible to put that money back into the community where I could, where I was like, okay, our coffee and our breakfast was like purchased from Booni.
Oh, great.
We got lunch. We catered one of our lunches with, what's the taco place? Serrano salsa. Yeah.
Very nice.
So, just trying to get as many like local people included as we can. I mean, we shot at the Noma Studios.
Yes.
So
excellent. Well, make sure you tell them that and all that. The point is, like, it's great to know that it's coming back in the neighborhood for us too. And it's fabulous. So you're in post there. So post is, we have a timeline and a few months of that happening. What's next for you on your docket?
Yeah.
Besides staying alive.
Been really trying to pay off my credit card debt.
That's a great thing.
I've been like, really, because I've just been like, you gotta like make some more art, but like you also like really should try I opened a savings account for the first time in my life like last week, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have a savings account. But because all those years of making independent theater meant I couldn't do that previously.
Well, it's funny how it's like the whole like you subsidize like New York everywhere, but specifically New York City, artists subsidize their lives here.
Yeah.
And their identity is so closely tied to their art. They're subsidizing their art and themselves. And so kudos for opening a savings account.
Thank you.
And and you're doing your survival jobs when you need to and things like that. But you're moving towards, more sustainable living, I hope.
Oh, yes, absolutely. 100%. And I will say, I also am like working actively towards other projects, but it's such a balance, right?
Yeah.
Trying to play that game of like, making sure that you're like taking care of all of your bills and like, like I have like 2 elderly cats and, that's like expensive.
It's like having 2 children.
It's like having 2 children and elder care at the same time. And like they need meds and making sure that they're all paid for. But on the other hand, like making sure that you're not sacrificing your art because you're in a position where you have a survival job that like is like, where you're like, okay, how do I make sure I can still pursue my dreams and create my art, but not like, ditch my like life responsibilities.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to play the dance. And actually to mitigate that, I was thinking about this the other day. So I'm in an indie film collective called Film Shop, which is really, really cool, and a bunch of New York artists. I think some of the other Inwood art Inwood filmmakers who I've met have also some connections.
Sure.
It's a really cool organization. Every year they do a little they invite all their members to create short films on a theme, as they're really called Film Shop Present. Very cool. And I'm just like, I don't like. I have this short film that I do want to make. I have the script. I don't have the resources currently to make the entire short because of the way I want to shoot it. I want to do like all one shot for like this like 12-minute short with like special effects makeup.
You're like Inaratu here.
yeah. Like, But I was like, well, if I just shot the first like 90 seconds, that would like fit the theme of this like event. And it would just like get me to like make, where it's just like, maybe I need to just do it. I guess what I'm kind of getting at is sometimes you just have to be like, I don't care if this is going to be good. I don't care if I have all the resources to make it perfect. But sometimes you just have to be like, screw it. Let me just make 60 seconds of something.
Yeah. Also, too, it's like you're getting a new skill set and you're stretching yourself creatively, and being creative and doing so. And, it's good to be pushed past your boundaries of what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And who knows? And also, I will say this too: it's like filmmaking and storytelling can be a very insular activity until you make the film.
Yeah.
So it's great to have being out there with finding out what other people think and how they're being creative, and maybe that does not influence you and your creativity and what you're doing.
Well, that was something that was so phenomenal about, receiving grant money from Inwood Art Works, was that like, that allowed me to create the biggest budget short film that I've ever made. And I learned so much from doing that.
There you go.
There were so many things where like we like, that was the first time I had like a professional special effects makeup artist to work with who was like a dream and I was like learning all this stuff about like face masks, latex.
That's so great.
Yeah.
But that makes me so happy to hear. Well, I hope you continue on and keep creating, and let us know how we can help in any way. Is there anything else you want to share we haven't touched by any chance?
Oh, that is a good question.
What do we need to know about you? What the masses? It's your time to shout from the rooftops.
The masses.
This is your say anything moment. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, say anything. Gosh, I don't know. I guess like wait, I have a thought. I want to articulate it correctly though. Or I guess something that should be said more is how important it is to build your community as an artist and to work with your community and to support others in your community, and then they support you. So I think like these little indie arts ecosystems are more important and more valuable, and making art within your community for your community is more important now than ever. Mm-hmm. I get very mad when I read about the state of things in the world, and I mean, there's so many things to be upset about right now. But one thing that I get upset about quite a lot is like the attack on public media and the attack on like nonprofit arts organizations. And these are relatively small organizations that have massively positive benefits for the communities that they interact with.
Yeah.
And to not have that in your society is like poison.
Well said, very to the point. So I started this organization. It's like who else is in the room? Just a local arts organization. Me. It really is tough. I always believe that the future of I have thought, that's why I built the company around it. Like the idea is to champion local artists and thereby cultivating a local arts going audience. And we're it's about hyper-local community and the support stays within that hyper-local community, hopefully. And you're a wonderful example you just talked about with your film and the money going back into the local economy and also into also you and the creativity in the local economy. And, hopefully the film will play at the Inwood Film Festival and it'll go on and play internationally and will bring you renown and bring our organization a good little thumbs up too here and there, which is nice to see. But what more and more people understand is that we're becoming more of a homogenous global society. And the great thing about being a global society was not that word homogenous. It was that you had all the different multiculturalisms from different places that made life just that little more funky and creative and awesome. And so in New York City is totally separate than any other place. I know people in New York are very jaded and think, oh, New York's the best in the world. Well, it's the best for you if you're staying here in New York. There are a lot of other places that are very unique and wonderful, like, I don't know, making it up. But there's a small town, in we'll say in Mississippi that has a great local arts culture, or Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it's very important to people who live there, and they don't need anything from New York. But what they're doing, they're celebrating their culture and their local community and their local stories. And I think that's what I'm so upset about. Grand scheme of cutting the funding from the feds, even though the feds have never really given enough. Like we're not like supported by the government. Like the National Endowment of the Arts has always been a struggle with the culture wars.
Yeah.
But I am very sad to see people kind of kowtowing into a greater national narrative and less local narratives.
Yeah.
And I hope I said that more eloquently than I probably thought I could.
No.
But that's where I'm coming from, is that there's your stories, and the stories that's what people want. That's what people need. And I know indie is a very common term that gets thrown around a lot, but no one ever throws around local.
Yeah.
And I think that's very interesting to me.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah. Indie filmmaking is like local filmmaking. I like that word shift.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think the reason why is because community theater has such a negative connotation in theater for professionals. It doesn't for people who are outside. Maybe it's like, oh, it's community theater equals amateur equals whatever.
It's like not
and
good,
so maybe
quote,
local
that's the
also,
subtext.
Right. In the subtext.
Not good
yeah.
theater.
It's like this, it's a bunch of kids like Spanky and our gang had kids to put on a show.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing a community theater production of A Few Good Men that was better than anything I saw on Broadway. So I think that celebrating, and what you're doing, I think, and I hope more people do, is like celebrating the local stories and I guess creating a better perceived value for it.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think. Okay, 2 last thoughts, I promise.
Yeah, we're not on time frame here.
Okay.
We're good.
So something that was really cool with going on this festival circuit with Strangers on the A Train, which Inwood Film Festival was kind of like the last, kind of at the tail end, where I was just like, kind of like bringing it back home. But I got into these relatively like small, like some really small little like festivals. Like for example, I took it to the Queer Fear Festival, which is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And it's like one of 2 queer horror film festivals in the country. And it's like the only one in the South, you know? And that community was so fun to get to go to, and it brought all these other filmmakers who wouldn't necessarily, like, I'd never been to North Carolina before. I'd definitely never been to Winston-Salem. There was, like, no offense to North Carolina, but I probably wouldn't have gone there if I didn't have a reason. And so going to these like small festivals around the country, it's really cool to get to go to places and to experience communities that I'd never been to and to see other filmmakers there. And then for like the community to also like get to know us and for people to share ideas and themes. So like that like sort of like, I want to say like not diplomacy, ambassadorship, right? To be these like sort of like ambassadors of creativity, like super, super cool. And also like, how does your like community not benefit from cool artists just coming in and sharing art? Like that's a great thing. You should want that there, you know, from an economic perspective, from a creative perspective, it's wonderful. But then also to then bring it back to the Inwood Film Festival, to then have done all this little traveling and then to come back and have sort of like the inverse experience where to see all these films all made by the people who all live in this area, like all like my neighbors basically, and to see the diversity of films, like all these different stories, all wildly different from each other, and all people living within the same like 20 blocks, 30 blocks, something like that.
Yeah. Some connection to the community.
Yeah. So then it does like this sort of other thing where like just completely makes like, there were shorts I saw that just completely made me rethink how I see a street I walk on every single day, you know? And so like, these are so important and valuable for us, like as people to have that experience. Yeah. It's definitely like a lot more important to be able to do that than like go to like the same big box store I can go to any city in America, you know?
Well said. I love that.
Anyway, that's my soapbox.
That's a great soapbox. And it's a great point to end on, too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel, for your point of view and sharing it on screen and here with us today. Where can people go to find out more about you?
Ooh, yes. So I have a website, rachelkerry.com. I really need to update it. I was going to update it last week and then I didn't. So this is me telling myself to update it. Maybe by the time you go visit it, I'll have actually like updated the photos and like the projects.
Again, another deadline.
Yeah, I need a deadline. And then actually I'm much better about updating my Instagram. That's sort of like my professional work and photos of my cats are on Instagram. R as in Rachel, F as in fire, Kerry.
Great.
That's it.
You have your marching orders, folks. Check her out. Become her friend. Follow her. Give her money. That's all you got to do. All right?
Yes, give me the money.
Again, thanks again to Rachel Kerry for coming on this Artist Spotlight episode of Inwood Art Works On Air. Again, it's where we meet the musicians, writers, theater makers, filmmakers, and artists of all stripes who make their home here in Upper Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show us some love by rating and review this podcast 5 stars on whatever platform you listen to. We greatly appreciate it. Many thanks to Good Shepherd here for hosting us and to HeightSites.com for uptown promotional support. Hey, you can support On Air, by the way, and all of our free programming making a tax-free donation to inwoodartworks.nyc/donate or via Venmo at Inwood Artworks. Be sure to follow us on social media to keep up all that we do, which includes the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, live performances, and so much more. Inwood Artworks On Air is proud to be supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and also the programming is made possible by the New York State Council on the Arts with support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Art Works On Air.